I feel like there's a little bit of hope in the air this summer compared to last summer as well,
Mhm.
because we are seeing the case numbers decline right now. And we can all use some laughter in our lives. Let's bring in Mark Ridley. He's the owner for the Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle, one of the oldest comedy clubs here, not only in the country, but here in the state of Michigan as well. Great to have you back with us.
Thank you, Ronnie. Good to be back.
I think the last time we had you on the show, you still were not reopened.
I believe that's correct. Yeah, we had 2 weekends in November we were open and shut down again, and then we reopened again at a limited capacity mid-February, Valentine's weekend. And then starting this week, we're back up to 50%, which is 200, and no curfew, which they just got rid of. So that gives us the soft reopening for July 1st when we can go to 400 seats.
So, with that, as a business owner, we hear so much about these reopenings and the lessening of the restrictions and the capacity, but so much focus I feel like has really been on restaurants that we've forgotten about industries such as yours. Are you surviving?
Yeah. Fortunately, my wife and I are cautious squirrels. We put a little aside just to make sure for these types of emergencies, and yeah, we're surviving okay. But um, let me expand on that and say that I'm part of an organization called the National Independent Venue Association, and they passed in December passed a bill of
Mm.
$60 billion to aid and fund venues like mine, theaters, museums, zoos, and they're just starting to hand out the money. And these are grants, which is great. So we all had to do a lot of work, and we all did a lot of networking and keeping in touch with each other to find out what the SBA was looking for, or what little, there's always going to be a tweak. In fact, I just ran into one a couple of days ago. I missed one line item on over 200 pages of documents I
Oh my
uploaded.
gosh.
So I had to fill that in real quick. I talked to somebody at the SBA in Washington. She told me, what it was, and I put it in there and got it back. And now they're running into an issue where your employee identification number could match that of somebody who's deceased in the Social Security system. So everyone has to call in and make sure that their EIN number is not matching on a master death list, it's called.
Oh my gosh.
So
Well, it's also like I feel like not only are you getting a lesson in, how to survive a pandemic, but also how
yeah.
to navigate the red tape of government.
Oh, there is. There's so much red tape because when this first came out, I was in California at the time. And so they said it's going to start at noon Eastern time. So that was 9 a.m. my time. And that was April 6th. And as soon as I logged on, the whole system crashed.
Yep.
They were kind of building this vehicle while it was still in motion, much like the PPP loan. But that being said, they said, okay, it'll be 2 weeks and we'll start it again. 2 weeks went by, and the NEVA organization was sending us daily updates. Stay tuned. That we're a bit in touch with the SBA. Finally, April 26th, it was up and running, and it took about 4 hours to upload all the documents. And now it's just a matter of you're prioritized. If you suffered 90% or more loss of 2019 revenues, those are the first 2 weeks, and they go to 70%, and then all others. So they've got enough money, and everybody will get something. And like I said, I had one little glitch, and that was a very important one, but it's been resolved.
But with that too, when we're talking about some of this money, it's like 20,000, 30,000. Maybe you're getting more or less, but really, when you look over the past year, especially the music venues that haven't been
Yeah.
open at all, that doesn't even come close to covering some of the bills.
Well, and without being specific, these venues, depending on your 2019 revenue, can get up to $10 million grant money.
Hmm.
Now, that's rather substantial. So if you did $20 million in sales in 2019, you're going to get 10 million. If you did 5 million, you're going to get two and not quite 2.5 million. So it's rather substantial. And there have been other grants along the way from downtown Royal Oak, who has been fabulous. Oakland County, the state, the PPP. So there was just enough to kind of keep our doors open, and you have to, of course, negotiate with your landlord and everybody else, and then make it up to them at a later time. But yeah, we haven't drawn a paycheck since this whole thing started, and but we were frugal prior, going into something like this.
So, Mark, I have to ask you, do you feel like you're kind of an expert now in grants and navigating government?
Well, no, Ronnie, I think that the thing that you have to keep in mind is that if you think you've got everything, be prepared. And there's always going to be one more item. That's all I've learned from this. And today, after I'm finished with you, I've got to call Washington again.
And I'm just thinking about, I feel bad because we were going to Italy and then the trip got canceled, but I had actually purchased the insurance and it took
Uh,
me like 8 months to get my reimbursement. And
oh
it
yeah.
took me going online, looking at public documents, how much the CEO made, and then tweeting it out. They were ignoring
Oh.
me. And so I started putting it on social media with his name and his salary. And then all of a sudden, they gave me my little 2 grand back.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, listen. I mean, sometimes the you do have to really poke that nest and say, let's get going here. I mean, you may be okay with your salary, but to a lot of us, this money really we need it. We still have mortgage payments and utility payments and everything else.
Yeah, unfortunately, those don't stop when the revenue
No.
stream stops. And with that, though, Mark, I was lucky enough to go there a couple months ago. My girlfriend was performing, and so I went to support her. And I will say it was a great experience. Like you said, limited
Thank you.
capacity, but
Right.
still, it was nice to be back into a room with other people and just laugh.
You know, uh, you're right. I mean, it's since I've been back, I went over for 3 days, and of course, we were still limited. I'm going back over. I live on the other side of the state, so I shuttle back and forth when necessary. The beauty of this business is I can work from anywhere,
Hmm.
because right now I'm booking acts, and my headliners are booked out till March of 2022. So I want to be back over there. They're moving all the tables and chairs up today and tomorrow back into the showroom, so that we are ready for July 1st. Because starting in August and September, I'm bringing in bigger names, and we need the 400 seats to do that.
So with that, again, Mark Ridley with us here on the Mega Cast. He's the owner of Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle, located here in downtown Royal Oak. And kind of give us a glimpse right now. What is it like for you to try to be able to book some of these acts? Because as businesses and clubs are starting to reopen across the country, are these acts getting booked up?
Well, yes. Interestingly enough, Michigan we all have a set of rules and standards and things that have to be done. So Michigan is kind of behind like Ohio
Yeah.
and Arizona and some of these others. I know my sons live in California, so they open up June 15th, next in 11 days. So we have to, when I'm speaking to the agents or the comedians themselves, I go, look, this is the way it is now. And you know how my past is, so I'm not going to continue to keep doing this. So as we do better, you're going to do better. But a lot of them just want to work. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, the alternative is to sit home and make no money. They're all independent contractors.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's been very, very tough, and everyone thankfully has been flexible and working with me just so that they get paid, I get some business, just to keep the doors open. So it's worked pretty well. It's a nice symbiotic relationship.
That's good. We were actually speaking to a person last week, and she does events, and she picked up and moved to Florida because they were open before we were, and she's like, I needed it
Yes,
to survive.
absolutely. And I think you're going to see more of that. I looked at the number of venues that applied for this grant, and it's roughly 14,500 throughout the United States. And that's far below what they thought we were going to. I knew of a couple of people who did not apply, because they were so solid in their, revenue, that they said better that somebody else gets it. We're okay.
That's great that there are business owners out there that think like that as well. Mark
Yes.
Ridley with us here on the MegaCast, and I will say the night that I went, it was all local people. And
Yes.
I like that because we have a lot of talent here in the Metro Detroit area.
You know, Funny you should say that. because I'm involved with a lot of comedy club owners around the country. I mean, it's a small network. It's not, there's maybe 200 clubs throughout the whole country. But that being said, we do a lot of things in Los Angeles. We do the Detroit to LA comedy competition. So I will set up, whoever the winner is gets to go out and showcase in about 4 or 5 clubs. And in years past, I've received phone calls back going, my gosh, every time you send somebody out, they just destroy the room. And he said, what's in the water there? I said, well, we're Michigan, we're Metro Detroit. I mean, it's just, everybody there are standards. And I think everybody's just wanting to make that next level. It used to be, Ronnie, where, your goal when I started the business was to be on the Tonight Show. That was it. It was just the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Now so many opportunities for comedians that they're working that much harder so that they can become a producer, they can become a writer, they can, and they can be on Comedy Central, or they could be on, some other national cable shows. So the opportunities are becoming better for a lot of comedians. So they're working harder here. And also with the night you saw, I believe it's 16 comedians I have on open mic night. Well, over 60 comedians sign up each week to get on that list.
Wow.
So that's an idea how many people are trying to become comedians, and some are doing very well, others are just okay.
Yeah. It's kind of like their side thing. It's a hobby. It's something they get out and they do.
Well, for some.
Yeah.
For others, I've known quite a few people that have given up very lucrative, good day jobs to become a full-time comedian. One, as a matter of fact, was just ready to graduate from medical school, and he gave it up and decided to become a comedian. Now he's a big producer.
Wow. Think about that, right?
Yeah.
All that training. Mark Ridley with us here on the MegaCast. And if I can ask you, too, because one thing in the pandemic that we've seen is really how social media has been so vital to so many people in keeping their messaging out there, and that includes comedians. So even prior to the pandemic, do you feel like the traditional way of trying to get your name out there has changed as well? Because people do have social media, and does that hurt how you try to attract some of the talent?
No, actually, we have a pretty good sized email list. Our following, our Facebook page does very well. I tell people I remember early on when I started the business where I'd have to put copy together for an ad in the Detroit Free Press and the Detroit News and try and stay in budget each week. And it was just a little tiny ad in the entertainment section. And a lot of times I'd have to run downtown from the suburbs just to get it in on time. You couldn't fax it. You couldn't, there were a lot of things you just had to do by hand. So social media has made it that much easier, that much more effective. And then when you talk about a certain comedian coming in, if they have a huge following, they're going to retweet or repost on their page. And that pretty much fills up the room.
Yeah, I will say, Mark, too, I violated the rules because it says no pictures. I didn't record, but I took a picture of my friend up on stage just to kind of, because I have like, a few thousand, 10, 15,000 followers.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to give her some love, but also let people know that the comedy club was back open.
Yes, and that's fine. I think a lot of that harkens back to the days when people would bring a camera and they had a flash. So we're living kind of by old rules. But then again, that being said, the reason we do say no videos is because if let's say a really good act who's working on something, and a customer records their act and then uploads it to YouTube prior to them doing their special or doing a concert. That's why we really police that.
Yeah, it's stealing, in a way, their material as well. And
exactly.
For me, I just made sure it was pictures just to, like I said, give her love, but give you guys love as well.
Just not even a misdemeanor there, Ronnie. Don't worry about it.
See, I'm good. See, life lessons,
right, so
Tyler.
Exactly. Just like just like the advice you gave to your niece. No felonies. No felonies.
They always laugh at me, Mark, because I'm like, life lessons. I'm always like, life lesson. And their number one saying is, we know no felonies, Aunt Ronnie. I'm like, exactly.
Very good.
That's a good life lesson. So with that, Mark, as well, do you anticipate this is going to be a very busy summer? Because I do feel like this summer we don't have the restrictions kind of hanging over our head of closing down again. I think from this point on, we're going to be open.
Well, I play golf with a lot of former CEOs and people that have been in business for many years, and a couple of doctors actually. And they say, look, we're going to have a booster at some point, and they're working hard on that. It'll just be like the flu shot. So that being said, do I think the summer's going to be busy? I think the summer's going to be very busy outside. You know, we live near a resort town, and we're already starting Memorial Day weekend. You couldn't find a room anywhere in any of the hotels or motels. So it'll be a busy summer, but going into the fall and winter in Michigan, I think that, and this is based on my survey, we're going to see a lot more customers coming back inside to laugh. And not to mention that's when I start having the really big names too.
So, with that, any big names that we should try to get tickets to now?
Well, you know, we're right on the verge of doing the just announced because we had to make a transition. I can mention names, but you can't get tickets yet. But you know, I've booked Dave Attell, Kathleen Madigan, T.J. Miller. I'm just trying to think of some of Sam Morrell, who has like 9 million views of his YouTube special. There's been, you know, there's quite a few. I mean, and I'm still working on negotiating. In fact, later on today, I'm talking to another agent. He handles John Lovitz and Rob Schneider, who come in and do a Sunday for me. So, you know, it's just a matter of working out the details.
There you go. But I will say, too, it's always great to go in and support the local acts because
Yes.
some of the comedians, they have great stories behind them as well. And their acts are kind of all over to reflect their life and their experiences as well. So
It's good therapy for them.
definitely. Mark Ridley with us here, Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle. Anything maybe you want to share before we let you go?
Just check us out at comedycastle.com. Follow us on social media, and don't be afraid to sit in the front row and laugh. It's
That's
always fun.
exactly. I was front and center.
Yep, there you go.
So with that too, Mark, you know, so many stories you must have to share from your experiences throughout the years. But going forward, what do you think is ahead for you?
Well, I've had a few people ask me if I'm retired or out of the business, and I said no. I mean, I'm not on location like I used to be. I'm always working. I watch videos at 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning. I'll continue to do so and try and keep my finger on the pulse of today's comedians. I mean, you know, just because I like a certain comedian doesn't mean it's going to translate to my general audience. So,
Right.
and vice versa. So you just have to, you know, that I'm continuing to work on bookings, and I'm trying to get that all finished so that I can relax during the winter months.
Well, that's great. I will say, if anything, you know, the past year has taught us all that we can work very well remotely, Mark.
Absolutely. And wish I would have bought a lot of that Zoom stock early on.
Don't we all?
We all say the same thing.
Yeah.
Mark,
Yeah.
it's been great having you. And again, we
Thank
wish you
you.
continued success. We're so great to see that you have survived this pandemic because we need laughter, I think, after this year, last year, more now
Absolutely.
than ever. So thanks
That's
for
right.
bringing us the laughs.
Thank you, Ronnie. Appreciate it.